Hello everyone, my name is Michelle, and today I had the honor of interviewing with Eva Marie and author Shirley Davis. Through Shirley's work, she is able to shed light on dissociative identity disorder, an often misunderstood disorder. Without further ado, let's get into the video. So, Shirley, to get started, what kind of work on DID have you found most useful that you educate on, and where can we find those resources?
I guess the main thing I educate on is, survival, for one thing. Getting people to know that there's a end to the road, right? And talking about integration and fusion, it's a big no-no word in the DID community, but it is what you're working towards, Not that you'll ever be one whole person, but that you'll be all your parts will be working in conjunction, working together. Resources. I use papers. There is a ton of papers about DID out there. Scientific papers. And they have some fascinating stuff out there. I guess there's not so fascinating stuff out there too. I use Google Scholar to look things up.
Eva, what have you found useful with resources Shirley has given out on DID?
And I'm going to be reading from a paper because that's how I answer. I found that Shirley's way of talking about the disorder is very simple and very untriggering. She seems to always have a warm presence when she talks about the disorder. I also found her online page, learnaboutdid.com, always has a new article almost weekly. And almost every Sunday, Shirley gives a presence with wise words and honest content about DID on YouTube. But the most useful item she has made for everyone is her books. Her simple guides and knowledge in them was what really got me started.
So Shirley, can you tell me when you decided to start educating on DID and how it has helped you heal and to connect with others?
Yeah, I spent 7 years in an inpatient psychiatric ward, and a little over 7 years, and I learned a lot from that visit. You can call it that. I had been told by the facility that I did not have DID, that there was no such thing as DID, and I was not supposed to talk about it. That it was a fake diagnosis, and that lit a fire under my butt to get me moving forward. And I decided when I got out that I was going to start writing about DID and talking about it so people, especially professionals, would understand what we go through.
So it wasn't just your love for writing, it was more you want to destigmatize.
Yes. And I help people. I know there's people that are more advanced than I am. I know there's people way behind me in treatment. So it's like you can learn a lot from people you talk to. And I know there's a hole where it needs to be filled with information, truthful information about DID.
I think that's what I like most about her. She's so honest and upfront. It's great.
Eva, out of all the books you have read that Shirley has published, what is one that you find most useful and others have found helpful?
That's a good question. For me, that would be The Tears that the Tears Will Seize. The reason I chose that one because it was not only for me, but others found it very useful and helpful in their therapy, and I have too. It's short, compact. There are questions inside that can be insightful to therapists and yourself, and I found it very easy to process.
Shirley, did you want to add any more about that book Eva talked about that you want to touch basis on?
Sure, it's one of my first books. Actually, it's the first book I published on DID. I wanted to get something out there that was simple, that people could understand, anybody could understand. I think it's primitive because compared to the other books, it's so early, but I guess it's not. people are always bringing it up. So.
It's a very good book. I love the guidelines and the questions, and my therapist is going through it with me, and she's like, this is a great book. I'm like, I know.
Wow.
Shirley, can you talk a little bit about when you decided you wanted help for your DID and what might have caused you to decide to seek therapy?
Back in 1989, I'm showing my age here. I knew something was wrong. For one thing, I had such major depression. You know, it was very harmful to myself and self-harm and things like that, you know. And I knew something was wrong, and I knew something was wrong in my life with the altars. I mean, it's like, I thought it was normal to hear people in your head. I guess apparently it's not. My brother was going to a rehab counselor at the time as a codependent. I was asked to come and see her. So I went to see her a few times, and then she told me that she didn't have the training to treat me. So she said, she sent me to a therapist named Paula. She diagnosed me in December of 1989 with DID.
Eva, was your journey seeking therapy similar to Shirley's since your diagnosis was done later than hers, or did you struggle just the same?
I would say somewhat the same. I had depression, self-harm issues since I was about 14 years old. I also had no idea I had DID at that time until a diagnosis was made in 2009. I thought maybe I had the start of dementia when I noticed how time would just go away. When I was younger, it didn't seem to bother me, and it was a coping skill, not a burden then. Until I was about 15, 16 years of age, that's when people started noticing more. And I was dealing with a nun called Sister Mary at that time, and she claimed me to be possessed in some way, brought on by unlawful sin and desires, things like that. She even went as far as to deprive me of food and water. When that didn't work, she used midazolam and injected in my hip that with calf needles. The scars are still actually there today and in my medical records. The real work came in 2015 when I met my therapist, whom I still have to this day. Been doing that ever since.
Shirley, I really want to know more about who influenced you to become such a great author and who your inspiration was.
Writing runs in my family, although no one else has been published. I would have to say that great fiction writers like Pearl S. Buck and Harper Lee influenced me. I actually wrote my first poem when I was in third grade at 8 years old, and the teacher that taught me a class encouraged me to write more, and so I did.
And your works writing, I bet you never knew how influential you could be with your writing skills by teaching about DID.
Oh, it surprises me every day. I mean, people, I go to sell my books and people come up to me and says, "Are you the Shirley Davis?" I'm like, "Yes." I'm like, "Yeah."
Now this next question is both for you and Eva. Could both of you reference who has been a true inspiration to help you both to read and educate on DID, and maybe add some of your own personal journey behind that?
There are many people who have influenced me hugely in my life and been inspirational to my writing. After I left the inpatient facility, I've been enjoying an online group called Ivory Garden. It's a group for trauma survivors and DID, specifically DID. Its owner is Pat Goodwin. The group helped me when I was unstable, allowed me a safe place to vent and to receive feedback and be accepted. That was a very big one right there, being accepted somewhere for who I was. I didn't have to change who I was. I went to a conference one time with Evergarden. When I walked in the room, I felt like I'd gone home because there were so many people there with DID. And they all understood everything I said. "Oh yeah, me too." Yeah. So it made me feel normal, right? And
maybe someday I'll have to venture out of my home just to come watch a lecture.
I've learned much and found much work through talking to people in Ivory Garden. I followed those links and began to follow new leads until I was able to speak with the idea with a definitive voice.
Eva, do you want to add anything?
For me, I think my biggest influence was Christine Cortez and Colin Ross. I found them both to be very calming and very understanding when it came to trauma patients. Christine Cortez also wasn't afraid to connect with patients and physical doctors, and neither was Colin Ross. They would do intensive investigations to a person's past to help them remember and heal And they talked in great detail in their books of those stories of going in with their patients to get through physicals and history and visiting the past. That gave me hope to do the same someday and to find relief like clients did. But I also wanted to help others to be able to do the same.
Shirley, can you tell us a little bit about your new book and what you think people are finding the most inspiring about it?
Well, my book, 366 Daily Readings for Those Who Have DID, is my baby right now. It's a year-round devotional book. I hesitate to use the word devotional because it sounds religious, but it's not religious. It's talking frankly about living day to day with DID and recovering, healing. Each page has a quote followed by my comment and how it pertains to healing from DID. And I actually read my book, 366, every morning. With my amnesia, I don't remember what I read, not what I wrote, so I read it every day. It's a new surprise, right?
Yeah.
Surprise! But every day I read it, I feel stronger. And I think that's my intent to writing that book, was help people feel stronger.
I still have to get my hands on the book yet. I'm gonna order it this month, hopefully.
Eva, I know you're quite a fan of Shirley's books and YouTube channel. What influenced you to start reading Shirley's content?
Believe it or not, it was the book I had ordered that started it. It was called Dissociative Identity Disorder in a Nutshell, a First-Hand Account. You know me, Michelle. I love to dig up on authors. And I found Shirley's YouTube and just kind of began there. And Shirley is truly someone to admire. And I just been following her ever since.
You're going to make me blush.
That's great, though. It's amazing to be able to find someone that you can really relate to and even use in therapy. It's so cool.
Yes, my therapist really enjoys your content, Shirley. She really does.
Wow.
Shirley, do you have a favorite book that you have written that you found most helpful for yourself, or?
I'm into research, right? And so I have a book about research. I forget what the title of it is. I wrote it. I can't remember the title, but it's a compilation of papers that were written at that time. There's been many more written since then. But I like that book because I can go back and I can go through the book and find things I need because it's well written, well laid out. And I've had medical doctors buy it from me, so it's cool. It's good. It's real good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
What kind of schooling backgrounds do you have?
I got an associate's degree after 37 years of trying. After 37 years, I rolled across the stage. It got me started. Now I've been to 4-year college and almost got my master's. But I need to go. I'm going to University of Illinois in the fall to finish that. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm not very far from it.
Amazing.
You have already talked about how you get your research materials for your writing.
There is other ways to get information, like Colin Ross has some really good books. And by the way, he's a very nice guy. I met him in person, and he's a very, very nice man. If you asked him to be on one of these interviews, I'm sure he would take you up on it.
Shirley, how do you deal with dissociation symptoms, and what other kind of hobbies do you have?
Dealing with the DID is the hardest part of the DID. Even though I'm really far advanced, I've been to fusion now, I feel like more of a whole person than I ever have. But dealing with the day-to-day amnesia, that's a problem. I don't know if that's ever going to go away. But if it doesn't, that's fine. I'm used to it. But it can be embarrassing, I mean, my brother will say, you said this yesterday, now you're saying this. And Mom, Michael, I don't remember yesterday. How am I gonna know what to say? I do Sudoku. Sudoku.
Oh, I love Sudoku.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. That's like for smart people.
It's a fun thing to do once you get into it. It's very addicting.
It is very addicting.
Yes.
Do you refer to it as integration or fusion? Just out of my curiosity.
My favorite word is fusion because integration has such a bad connotation to it. Like people are like, oh, not integration, the I word. So I usually use the word fusion when I'm talking about it. It seems to not trigger people as badly.
What is the biggest thing you've noticed since fusing together?
That I don't lose time like I used to. I may lose time if I'm extremely stressed. Other than that, day-to-day things. I've had surgery and things done and remain myself. So I think that, it's coming. It's coming along.
So you notice that, like, just daily life is easier to live with. And Eva, you could probably say the same thing.
I can, yeah. I got a question. When you had the fusing, like I said, we're all different. But for me, when I go through that process, it is so painful, but then it's like so relieving after. It takes like a day of processing, and then all of a sudden I'm like, you start getting all your memories back and what you felt like. I think the emotions are more painful than the memory itself.
Yes.
And I think the hardest thing for me was feeling that in my body when that integration fusion process took place. I don't know how it was for you.
Well, a lot of people don't understand treatment, what goes on in treatment. How do you get past the trauma?
Yes.
And the only way out is through. You got to go through it. Feel those feelings and feel those emotions and, remember things, unfortunately. But once you remember it and it's out, you've told it to somebody else. You're not alone in it anymore. It seems like it loses its power, right? And you're more able to simulate that personality into yourself.
I think the hardest part too is when your therapist repeats constantly that you have choices now. That is so hard for me to believe in, and still fight with that, where she says, you have choices.
Yeah, you
don't have to do this,
Yeah. This is something I talk about a lot too. I went along my life until I was about 35, believing the world owed me and living because of what happened to me. I felt like a victim. I was forever a victim. And I finally got past that. I had an awakening one morning. It's like I was sat on the side of my bed and I thought, I don't want to live like that anymore. I got out of the victim mentality into the thriving, the thriver or the healing part of it. It made a lot of difference in my life, a lot of difference.
I'm hoping to get there someday. I still deal with the feeling of, it's like a mixed emotion. I'm still trying
It is.
Get to that point. It's like 1 minute I'm 100% behind what she says, and then the next minute there's this little voice going, you're breaking the rules. It's like, go away.
Yeah, my therapist became like my mother in a lot of ways. She brought me up. She raised me. I saw her for 27 years. She raised me.
Yeah.
And when she retired, I took it hard. Still take it hard sometimes because I'll never see her again.
I guess the one thing I want to ask is, because I've gone through this, have you forgiven everyone that's put you through all this? I think that was one of my hardest things to get over. I finally have, because I realized that he also had a sickness. My family members, some of them are still very much hateful and upset, but I still forgive them. Mm-hmm. It took me years to say that.
I don't know if I've forgiven everybody. I think I have. Mostly I still have anger towards them.
Yes.
You don't have to let go of the anger just because you forgive them.
Yes.
In that way I have, yes.
I think what's interesting is there's even research Colin Ross had talked about where child predators actually, their frontal cortex is different than normal people. There's like I don't know if you heard about that, Shirley, where there's like a malformation where they literally see children as adults.
That would answer a lot of questions, wouldn't it? As to why they did it, or why they didn't stop when it started. If they see us as adults, and
it is sad. It's as time goes on, I'm hoping that with the information and people talking about the realness of it, I'm hoping that the glamorization of DID sexually and with drug use and age regression children stops. Because there are people out there that will view a child, and if they do have a child alter and they're displaying it publicly in that manner, my concern is for that person, because there is going to be somebody that could stalk them, harm them, or do things that they shouldn't.
Take advantage of that little that's come out.
Yes.
Yeah, because for all intents and purposes, these littles, child alters, are children.
Yes.
They don't have the mentality to think like an adult. So it sounds weird that a child alter could be in you and not understand the world, but it's true. So, I protect my child alters. Much as I love Paula, she only met one of my alters, of my child alters. She met several of the adults, but not one of the children. I was so protective.
Very motherly instinct.
I think that's what helped me so much getting where I am. One day I decided I was going to love those alters, and when I love my alters, I'm loving myself. So if I give one of them a hug, I'm giving myself a hug. Rocking in a rocking chair with them is rocking myself. It soothes.
You rock too? I rock too.
It solves a lot of the problems. A lot of the problems helped me through the worst. Yeah.
The thing I've noticed too, and I don't understand, again, with the TikTok displays, is how children alters are able to function at such high levels. Because now, like when Michelle, she had come to my home to do an interview, she actually met alter 6. My daughter had texted her, hey, 6 is out. And she thought Michelle was a Michelle that was in 2nd grade that I knew. She had no idea who Michelle was.
Yeah. I sometimes go train cops, policemen, about DID. And one of the things I tell them is, you find somebody that's dissociated, especially if they're dissociated in the child alter, they're really, really frightened if they do that. Don't leave them alone. Take them to the police station, take them to the hospital, or stay with them. Because until they become an adult again, they are vulnerable.
And for me, that was, like I said, I actually have a medical bracelet. When I can drive, they can see it, or if they, pull me over, or my husband gets pulled over, and it actually has a dementia lock on it, because I've had littles rip this thing off. And then also, even on the side of my car, I've had a person who specializes in making those stickers, and I actually have a sticker on the side of my car, so that way, if there is ever an issue, a cop will know. I also have a little card in my wallet saying what to do with me, who to call. And you never hear people on TikTok talk about these tiny little survival skill issues that we got to deal with day to day. Day
to day, yep. A lot of it's, I won't say it's fake. I'll just say it's
misinformation.
Misinformation. And I think people don't understand that having DID is not glamorous.
No.
There's nothing fun about having DID. And so when I see somebody on the computer or my computer acting like that, acting out, behaving like they do, it makes me angry, because
Does it trigger you? I find it triggering.
It is triggering.
Really do.
It is triggering.
It's hurtful.
It's very hurtful. And they're not telling the truth. And so that the movies like Split get made because of people like that.
I've also noticed, if you notice now, we advance as time goes on. If you notice these people, and I've dug very deep into this, they don't get better, they get worse.
Yeah.
They get worse.
They would. If they really had the idea of having other mental illness, sure, they'll get worse at the time.
And they seem to come up with no alters with no reason. I think that's the hardest part for me. It's like they get followers and they get attention and sympathy. Don't get me wrong. People with DID are very enmeshed in receiving care, attention, loving touch, things like that, that's safe to them. When you get on like a TikTok or a media app, and if you're not trained in how to deal with that, it can cause more issues, more triggers, more switching, more problems. It can even, for me, when I started TikTok, because I was trying to do the TikTok thing, my therapist right away said, something's not right with you. What's going on? And I'm like, I'm on TikTok. Oh no. It's like, okay, wait. She's like, yeah, you can educate Eva, but don't do what they're doing. It's not healthy. I was like, sorry. That's why I started digging around and started finding more people that are like me, talk honest and upfront.
I invite people to go to my website. It's got a lot of information about DID. Learnaboutdid.com. Pretty easy to remember. Learnaboutdid.com.
I love that site. I look forward every week to seeing what you wrote.
Yeah, I've been sick lately and I haven't been writing that much, but I'm getting back on my feet now. So
I was just wondering if you'd be willing to share about any future books or writings you're working on, or.
I haven't thought one up yet. I mean, I'm sure I will. There'll be something coming along. maybe an upgrade to the second edition to the book about research, because there's a lot more out than there was then. So maybe that. But other than that, I haven't got anything that works. No.
That's okay.
It took me a year to write that book. I wrote 366.
When you're done therapy, Shirley, what did you find most useful?
Oh, I'm still in therapy, but not intensive therapy.
No, I mean, what did you find most? As far as tactics, what did you find most healing and useful?
You mean working with a therapist?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. One of the tricks she had, when I had a really hard time telling her the details of what had happened to me, she had a blank wall behind her. She says, here's the blank wall. I want you to project your memory onto that wall and tell me what you see. And then I was able to tell her. Also, she had me form a safe place in my mind. Mine's a beach where the alters and I could meet and work these things out. Yeah. And having some place to meet and work things out really helped.
My therapist did that too, find a safe place. Mm-hmm. I like how she told you to project it somewhere else, mine does too. Yeah. To separate those feelings and emotions for a little bit so you can handle them.
Yeah. And once it was out, see, it lost its power. And all these good memories that were stuck behind the bad ones came flooding forward. And it was a good experience. It was a bad experience in a lot of ways, but it was a good experience in others.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
Do you find that you struggle with crying or emotions, but your littles are able to have them more for you very easily?
Oh, yeah. Yes. I have an 18-year-old, 20-year-old, somewhere in there, named Bianca. We were enemies when it first started out. She didn't like me, I didn't like her, because I took over, her role of being the head honcho of the group. Slowly, we got to liking each other. She would spend money I didn't have. She'd go out, she'd buy clothing I didn't need. She'd buy books I didn't want. She'd buy all kinds of stuff. So I started giving her an allowance, just like you would any other teenager. Yep. And every month I give her $30, and there's only a few rules to it. No booze.
Yep.
No porn, Yep. No illicit drugs.
I dealt with that with Alter 16. She was very, very promiscuous, had a lot of issues. Mm-hmm. She had even made the mistake of cheating on my husband at the time. He accepted it. He understood it. And, we've come a long ways with that, but it was a battle.
Yeah,
it was a huge battle.
Yeah.
My therapist always kept saying the same thing. You got to learn to love them. If you don't learn to love them, it's never going to get better.
Exactly. Self-parenting is important. Yes. Learning to be your own mother, not expecting other people to be your mother. Learn to be your own mother. And that's what Paula taught me. Very slowly, she let go of the reins.
Mine's doing that too, and I keep trying to reel her back in. I'm like, don't leave me. It is. My biggest fear is losing her right now, and I got to get to that point where I shouldn't do that, but she's so vital in my therapy right now.
Right. It's painful to lose a therapist.
I've lost some that have mistreated me or crossed boundaries, but this is the first one that's never crossed a boundary, and I'm petrified of losing her.
I had an experience where Paula, the clinic she was working for, because I took a bankruptcy, refused for me to see her. I didn't get a chance to say goodbye.
Oh.
And it was like cutting in the umbilical cord too soon. That's why I ended up in the facility for so long. Well, the first thing I did when I got out was get back with her. And she said, I thought you left mad. I said, no, I just didn't get a chance to say goodbye.
I think that's the hardest part too, is as you get older, you lose a lot of things that people just don't understand.
People take it for granted.
Yes, very much so. And I've also noticed, even for me, my survival skills were tested. I was at 139.8. And people today, they struggle with simple things. And for us, it was like a common thing for us to be able to fix something, get something, cook something. And other people are just at awe by how we have a mental illness, but we function so well.
Resiliency is very high quality of someone with DID. Being very resilient. You had to be, and learn how to survive, right? The initial problems you have with abusers, you often have a lot of resiliency there. A lot. You're not born with resiliency, You have to learn it.
Exactly. I mean, people still judge me. I sleep with a baseball bat. I always will.
I used to sleep with a Ginsu knife under my bed.
There you go. See, it's like, even though there's not a threat there, there's always, our thoughts are, there's a threat. There's a threat.
There's a threat. Yeah, because your amygdala, our brains are different too. Amygdala and the hippocampus and several other parts of your brain are damaged. It's the only word to use is damaged. From all the stress hormones we went through, the that flooding of adrenaline and cortisol, and it never went down to a base level. It never did. We're always up to here with our stress hormones. And I think when we get personally in therapy, it starts being that way too. And that's why we're so anxious and so upset. And,
Well, it's like some people found it odd because already by the time I was 28 years old, I was put on blood pressure medication. They thought I had high blood pressure. Here it was just when I switch into an alternative, smaller state, I age regress, everything jumps. My thyroid will change, my white blood cell count will change, my blood pressure, my heart rate, my body temperature. And my therapist started monitoring these things when she started going with me to see the physicians. So now she goes in there and she writes, she's like, what are you on? Where's your blood pressure at? She monitors and writes these things down. And I think, I don't know for sure, but I think she uses it in when she has her conferences with her other therapists. So they're able to use this information to talk with each other, which I'm hoping will continue to happen, because that's what they need to do. They need to start connecting with each other.
Right. I remember when I first got into therapy, I was desperate to find somebody out there who's advanced enough to teach me. Tell me what integration is. Tell me what fusion is. Tell me what all these things are. I could never find anybody. So I realized I was getting further along. That's why I got really interested in YouTube and putting things out there. Because, people need to know.
Do you find that you value your books more than anything? I have an issue with that. They're like my lifeline.
Oh, my books?
Yeah.
They're just part of who I am.
Yeah. See, I'm addicted to my book collection. You can ask Michelle when she comes over here. It's like, oh, look at this book. I got this mark, this mark. Do you need to read this? I've even given her some of my older ones because the information is so vital. Even though they're older, people say, oh, it's outdated. It don't count. It's history. It talks about the process of how it happened and started. And I love history.
I know this may be a hard question, Shirley, but for everything you have been through, what drives you to keep working and showing the honesty and realness about DID?
It's because there's so much misinformation out there about DID. I mean, movies like Split. I mean, come on. We're not like that. And it gives people the idea that we're dangerous, we shouldn't be around children, da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, well, that's silly. We're just people who have a different way of thinking, but we're not dangerous. My drive must be that I'm tired of people, especially medical personnel, looking at me like I'm from Mars when they see my DID on my chart. The misinformation about DID sets me up for gaslighting. And I know somehow I need to end that.
Yeah, it definitely needs to end. I think that's and the thing is, people with DID are more likely to harm themselves than they would anybody else.
Yes.
Eva, is there anything you would like to add before we close here?
Absolutely. I 100% agree with Shirley. There's so much misinformation and representation of the disorder that even common myths are being believed at this point. The idea is to teach people the realness and honesty behind DID. I also think that mental health care providers and doctors need to collab when it comes to those with DID to help the somatic symptoms and real ailments that come with it. Many people I have met with DID suffer from issues like fibromyalgia and POTS, and even things like changes in heart rate and blood pressure. These are things that should be monitored by not only the physician, but also the mental health care provider. The hours in therapy need to be more too, I think, my personal opinion. It seems like these 45-minute sessions are not doing justice for people because it takes almost a half an hour to an hour just to feel comfortable and trust every week.
Yes.
1 hour is just not enough for good time. I hope that can be changed.
Thank you so much for being here, and I'll put all your references in the link description.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
I think this discussion was very insightful. Thank you so much to Eva and Shirley for allowing me to interview you. Shirley is an accomplished writer, and through all of her works, she is able to help destigmatize dissociative identity disorder. If you found this video at all insightful, make sure to give it a thumbs up to spread it across the algorithm. Thank you so much. Thank you so much again to Shirley and Eva, and to the viewers, thank you so much for being here, and peace out.